We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Romans 5, verses 3 and 4. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, to suffer in its most basic form simply means being forced to endure. And while we might not like it, we know deep down that being forced to endure builds every kind of strength. If you want to get physically stronger, you got to force your muscles to endure more weight. If you want to get stronger mentally or spiritually, then just keep living, aka be forced to endure more life. One aspect of living a good life is making sure you have a worthwhile pursuit. But every time you accomplish a major goal, it won't be long before that now empty void has to be filled with something else. But you can't just fill it with something shallow. Like for instance, chasing material things. Some people try to fill it with drugs for the sake of escaping. But we've all seen that movie and it doesn't end well. We're designed to be pursuing. We're designed to be fruitful. That's why we have this innate desire to accomplish things. Like we want to achieve stuff. Without that desire, we wouldn't continue our pursuits through struggle, and we would never make it out of our dormant season to once again produce fruit, and we'd wither and die. Damon Sheehy-Guiseppi had many goals in life, many of which he never accomplished. The pain of that failure has been a part of his suffering, but through that, like we discussed, he's developed endurance, character, and guess what he produces for other people now?
I even just feel inspired just talking to you.
Hope. He's been cut and humiliated. Bro, he's been homeless. But through his struggle, he's become more than he ever imagined. Everybody loves a come up story, and that principle has been laid out for thousands of years. The prelude to DSG's story might have started with a dream, but the real story ain't start until he took those first meaningful steps toward his goal. His dream was to become a pro basketball player, but coming out of high school, my dude didn't get one offer. So he goes to a JUCO called Mesa Community College, and he tries to walk on to the basketball team. He walks in, gives his all, leave it all on the line. The tryout ends, and he doesn't make the squad. So right off the bat, he's been forced to endure failure 2 times in this story, and we barely got started. But if he walked around with his head hanging down, then he never would have seen opportunity open up. He would have walked right past that massive sign that said in plain language, track and field tryouts. So he made the track team, but in the middle of the season, the dude is involved in a car accident. And due to an injury he sustained in that wreck, he now has to miss the remainder of track season. So boom, another door just slams shut, and all of a sudden, another dream lays down and dies. But when one door closes, another one opens. And he says, hey, there's one more sport I can try. So Damon gets wind of a football tryout at Phoenix College. And I know what you're thinking. My boy was so desperate to make a sports team that he fell for a fake tryout with the online school. You're thinking about the University of Phoenix. I'm talking about Phoenix College, a JUCO in Arizona. So Damon goes to the tryout and feels he does pretty well, but unfortunately never gets the call back. They ghosted my boy, or at least they tried to. Some people you gotta be real direct with. No callback is generally taken as a no. But Damon was like, they gotta call me to tell me no. Since I ain't get a call, I ain't get a no. So I just roll up on the first day of practice. Throughout that whole summer, he showed up for every workout. He made it his mission to finish first in all of the sprints, which helped them to gain favor and attention from the coaches. It was a really great move. When the coaches started discussing players for the final roster, they ain't even think to ask who invited the kid who always worked hard and finished first in the sprints. None of that mattered now. They put him on the roster. One of my favorite kind of unmentioned things with that part of the story is the fact that in order to execute a plan like that, I'm gonna finish first in all of the sprints, you had to have already been preparing before that to be in the type of shape to pull that off. So you should be always preparing, even when you don't know where your next opportunity is gonna come from. A lot of times the goals we think we chasing don't be the real goal. It's just a device to get us excited enough to prepare ourselves so we ready for the real opportunity. Immediately, Damon made an impact on special teams as they turned dude loose. He gained 1,200 kick return yards in his first season, and he was named Junior College All-American. This is a guy who invited himself to practice. The next year, he improved to to 1,278 yards on kick return, the most in the nation. On top of that, he had 4 kick return touchdowns and an additional 400 punt return yards. It finally felt like dude had identified his mission, and he was moving towards that in a meaningful way. But after 2 years of JUCO, that's the end of the line. Unless a D1 school offers you a scholarship. Unfortunately for our dude Damon, no D1 schools were interested in him. He was a JUCO All-American and still couldn't get any interest from the D1 schools. So by this point, most people would have already quit. They would have quit like 2 or 3 failures ago. But Damon kept enduring and therefore building endurance, resilience, character, and dreams that are harder to kill. His options was running out, but he still had hope. So he decides to use his beginner credit to apply for a credit card. Then immediately he maxes it out, paying for trips to different D1 colleges in an attempt to get an opportunity with a team. He walks in with his film and tries to meet pretty much anybody that he can. He knows this is a long shot and he hopes that it'll turn into something more. This is the definition of a full court shot, and like most full court shots, my boy didn't hit nothing. But he then does the same thing with NFL teams, trying to walk in there and get someone to watch his film and hopefully then give him a workout. So obviously that didn't work, but my guy's spirit is still somehow not broken. He finds out about a CFL tryout here in the States, only to get there and realize it's just a formality. He's told that they hardly ever really sign anybody, and the day he tried out would not be the exception. Okay, cool. So then he says to himself, well, you know what? I bet I can play arena ball. Tries out for arena ball, still don't make it. At this point, everybody he knows gotta be telling him to chill. First, he wanted to play in the NBA, but he couldn't make the JUCO basketball team. He lost his spot on the JUCO track team, but finally excelled in JUCO football. But he was then rejected by every D1 school. The NFL obviously didn't give him the time of day, and now he can't even make it in arena ball, bro. Like, all he got left is flag football. So that's exactly what he did. In life, things don't often go as we plan, but we experience things that there's no way we could have planned. Even as locked in and committed as Damon was, it's hard for me to believe that he thought flag football would be the next step to an NFL roster. Logically, it just doesn't make sense, right? But I'm sure he didn't plan to not make the basketball team, lose a spot on the track team, and become an All-American in football. We don't get to see the entire path. All we get to see is the next 2 or 3 steps. If we never take those steps, we end up stuck. But when we do, we open the path up to our destiny. So one of the flag football players that Damon played with had a friend who'd heard about this secret tryout that the Cleveland Browns were holding. It was an invite-only tryout held in Miami, and it had just kind of come up here in casual conversation. To the guys talking about it, it's really just a dream. But Damon has become a person who can take action. He's been rejected so much that rejection don't faze him. In his eyes, all he sees is opportunity. He pokes and prods trying to get the address to the tryout, but the guy really don't want to give it to him because it's invite only. But with Damon, we're talking about a dude with really a completely different level of determination, bro. So eventually he gets the address out the guy, and as he's walking off, dude says, when you get there, look for Alonzo Highsmith. So Damon Googles Alonzo Highsmith and finds out he's the Browns vice president of player personnel. So he burns an image of what Alonzo looks like in his brain so he can't forget. He's preparing to pretend that he knows this man. This plan sounds a little crazy, but it just might work. So when he makes it to the workout, he was met with confusion. Like, who are you and what are you doing here, bro? But after he convincingly says, hey, I was invited by Mr. Highsmith, they let him into the facility. Then wisely, bro, he immediately searches. He finds Alonzo Highsmith and introduces himself. Now he does know him, and Alonzo is impressed that this cat he don't know finessed his way into the workout. He's like, if dude did all of this to get here, we might as well at least just see what he got. Now if, and that's if, Damon really did his research, he would have seen that Alonzo's son actually attended the same school that he he had attended. Alonzo Highsmith Jr. went to Phoenix College, though it was about 6 years before Damon ever got there. But Alonzo Highsmith Jr. would later try to make it into the NFL as a free agent. So if Damon really did his research, he would have been smart to make Alonzo aware of the similarities between himself and Alonzo's son. That way, Alonzo could see some of his son when he looks at Damon, gaining him a little bit of favor. If he did make that known, it might have even been the reason that Alonzo let him stick around in the first place. When Damon lined up for the 40-yard dash, the former track athlete ran a 4.38. This is a make or break drill in a lot of these tryouts, cause speed is just something that a team can't teach you. Damon's 40 time was faster than all but 5 of the receivers in the 2019 NFL draft. That was big, and if anything, was gonna swing this thing into Damon's favor. Aside from his work ethic, it was gonna be his speed. The workout ended like all the other ones. When it was over, Damon left and made sure his phone ringer was turned all the way up. But every other tryout he'd ever been to, from JUCO basketball to JUCO football to the CFL to arena football, after all them tryouts, he never got a call back. But 30 minutes later, after his NFL tryout, he can't believe it, but his phone starts ringing. And it's the guy who he just pretended to know, calling his phone for real this time. So Alonzo told Damon that he'd been invited to the official tryout in Cleveland, Ohio. The tryout would be held just 1 week later, and that was mostly good news, except for the fact that Damon had ran out of money, and he barely had enough just to get to Cleveland. Not to mention that when he did get there, he knew he wasn't gonna have anywhere to stay. But Damon's suffering had built his endurance and character to the point where he felt nothing on this earth could stop him. So he spent his last little money just getting to Cleveland, and when he got there, he slept outside. Not in a car, mind you, outside. Check out this quote from Damon himself. "I found a Jewish community center that was gated. So my first night in town, I found this little grass spot in the back, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna stay here. Then I found a mattress that was going in the trash. I dragged it over behind the bushes where no one could see it." Peep the dedication on this next part. "The next day, I made sure I woke up early enough to get my workout in. Then I would go to the beach, go to the laundromat, chill, relax. I would just walk around with my duffel bag until it was time to lay down again." He basically just had to thug it for a week until the tryout rolled around. And despite his extremely rough living conditions, when the tryout came, he was primed and ready. He had scraped his way up from absolutely nothing. Dude scratched and he clawed for every opportunity that he ever got. And after all the ups and downs on this crazy journey, he was finally offered a free agent contract. A couple months later, people worldwide will hear about Damon's story for the very first time, when the most famous receiver in the world at that time loaned Damon a pair of cleats for a preseason game. Wearing Odell Beckham Jr.'s cleats, Damon took a punt return 86 yards for a touchdown. And to think, he really finagled this out of eavesdropping on a private conversation that was held at a flag football practice. This flag football before the Olympic announcements. At that time, flag was even lower on the totem pole. Always remember that when you feel you didn't get enough opportunities to accomplish your goals. A lot of times opportunity is right there in our face, but we don't want to take them first 2 or 3 steps without a full blueprint. A quote that I used to use all the time was by an old filmmaker named Orson Welles. To paraphrase, it says, "If you want a happy ending, that depends on where you stop the story." Now, when I first told this story 6 years ago, the touchdown with OBJ's cleats hadn't even happened yet. But if you roll the credits here, you get a fairy tale ending, but you miss the real truth about this life. That truth is that the things we pursue are meant to reposition and transform us, not reposition and recline us. So unless, God forbid, your life end that day, the destination is more of a checkpoint than a final resting place. So a couple months after this unbelievable moment, which was the culmination of years of failure, struggle, and perseverance, Damon got cut by the Browns, ending his fairy tale run. Now imagine if the story stopped there. Instead of the fairy tale feel we got from stopping the story right after the big touchdown, we now get the cold feeling of sobering reality, which don't give you the same warm fuzzy feeling, right? The thing is though, neither of these feelings is the end. They're both unavoidable scenes in a really long movie. And as the cameras keep rolling, the action slowly picks back up when Damon starts pursuing once again. He goes through a similar cycle to the one that he endured before. Small wins and a whole lot of losses. But he faces them all with the never say die attitude that allows him to grow from experiences that would tear most other people all the way down. Check out this timeline that starts after the touchdown. In 2019, he got cut by the Browns. Later that same year, he gets drafted into the XFL. In March 2020, he's placed on IR and waived. In October 2020, he signs with the Spring League. September 2021, he signs with the CFL. Never plays a regular season game and is eventually cut. In 2020, he signed with Major League Football, a league that folded before they made it out of training camp. In 2023, Damon goes to Italy and signs with the Italian Football League. In 2024, he scores his first professional touchdown in a regular season game. But that was only the start of what he'd do next. That same year, he goes on to lead the IFL in receptions, yards, and receiving touchdowns. He's named IFL Offensive Player of the Year in his first time getting to play really since college. But later in 2024, he doesn't sign back with the IFL, which seemed a little shocking. But based on this quote, we can clearly see exactly what happened, and we understand the move. So recently, Damon said playing with the Arlington Renegades is the most money he's made as a pro. The Arlington Renegades is a UFL team, which was the most recent league that Damon signed with. Damon deals with some type of struggle in every league he joined. This time he got injured during training camp. He was activated halfway through the season, but never actually ended up recording any stats. The purpose in this story, or at least the way that I've decided to tell it today, was not to wow you with a satisfying ending. I'm trying to illustrate something, hoping you'll have a light bulb moment. The purpose of this story is to illustrate real life, where one episode always leads to the next. More often than not, life moves like a TV show with like 90 seasons and keep getting renewed, as opposed to a movie that's been trimmed all the way down to just the highlights. Most of the time, life moves like a football game, where you can make a good play and celebrate for a moment, but you still have to line up for the next snap. Then, bro, you might struggle for the next few series before you make another play worthy of celebration. And if I ask, most of y'all would probably agree with that take. But for some reason, we still tend to move as if we think life ain't a full game, like it's a highlight tape, with all the bad plays and down times just edited out. We love to get this false presentation to the rest of the world. And what happens is we end up comparing our real film session to somebody else who is just uploading highlights. Then we beat ourselves down because our real film don't look as good as their fake film. That's the message for today. Stop doing that. If you enjoyed this video, man, like and share it. If you want to read along, reread these pieces, or read these scripts before I make them into videos, click the link in the description and subscribe to my Substack. We've been getting good growth recently, and I thank y'all for that.